I am not sure whether we do have the ministers. I see that we have Minister, Honorable Minister Steenhuisen and Deputy Minister Thapha. And the DDG on agriculture. I can't see Minister Nyon, so if he is here, and the deputy. However, colleagues, you are welcome, and ministers, you are welcome to this meeting once more. Let's request Albertina and your colleague to give us apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, members and the colleagues and everyone on the platform. Chair, from PC1 Agriculture, we've got two apologies. One from MP Sin attending another portfolio committee meeting, and MP Umtetwa is attending party strategic meeting. Those are the only two apologies that I received, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, your colleague.
Good morning, Chairperson.
On land reform and rural development.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Yes, Lwazi.
Yes, Chairperson, from our side, there are no apologies, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Yes, Bani Tumadala.
Madala, thanks, Chairperson. I'm confused, Chairperson. Ulwazi pending at 11 o'clock, 11. Can I be excused because I've got a caucus with the president and the members of the MKP, and then I'll join back once we're done.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Ulwazi may have missed that point. It's fine. It's noted. Any other apology, colleagues?
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning.
Yes, Ms. Adams.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, an apology for Honorable Lucas. She's just busy and will join when she finishes their business. Thank you.
Who is that? I didn't hear the name.
Honorable Sylvia Isaacs.
Oh, Honorable Sylvia Isaacs. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. It's noted. Colleagues, I want to believe that we're accepting the apologies. Can I hear from yourselves, colleagues, confirming the apologies so that we can move?
Apologies accepted, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ndabezitha. Now we're going to go to the presentation, which is the only item that we have as a joint committee here this morning, except that the portfolio committee on agriculture will have to stay longer after the meeting. Honorable Pungela.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable, I'm an official from the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, responsible for support services. Minister Nyonzo is actually indicating that he's struggling to connect. He has been trying from 20 past, and it keeps on saying connecting. So he requested me to advise the chair. So, but he'll keep on trying to connect. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Lupungela, I think that he must advise the minister to look for another spot, because if it keeps on saying connecting, it's network problem. Nothing else. It can't be the link. But thank you very much for that. May I then allow the Honourable Minister Steenhuisen to introduce the team and the discussion or the presentation. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members of the committee, and morning to members of the Land Reform and Rural Development Committee, our sister department. On behalf of the DM and I, we would like to hand over to the DG, who will be introducing those who are doing the presentation, and then we'll obviously be available for any interactions there afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. DG, please come through.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture and the members of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture. Likewise, I would like to extend my greetings to the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Land Reform and Rural Development and the honorable members of that committee. We have been requested today to come and make a presentation around the split that we had based on the 7th administration request that was there. I think from the perspective of engagements, we need to indicate that this is one of those restructuring periods that happens very quickly after the 2019 restructuring, which we had reported to the then Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. I would like to indicate that I will look at a few areas that would form the basis for this discussion, Honorable Chair. Firstly, reflecting on a very important aspect of engagement, that the transition that we are currently have is governed by 3 technical execution of the split, as it were. The first that in terms of the proclamation, the function should be aligned with the department as per the proclamation. And that proclamation also highlighted the mandates that were there. Just to highlight that the mandate of agriculture would be related to matters relating to all legislation within agriculture, and would also relate to support in agriculture, and to a greater extent around food security and also economic trade and marketing in areas where some of those would not necessarily be legislated, but be dealt with at international level. Likewise, the issues around the land reform, issues around the support functions to land reform, whether it's this office, it's surveillance, it's also quite a lot of issues around spatial development would be with the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. The area that would also be, let me just take down this volume, thank you very much. The area of rural development also remained with the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. Now, out of that function of separating the mandates of the 2 departments or all members, what followed would be that the personnel would follow the function in a way that would require us to have a very clear way of preserving the operational continuity and institutional capacity to run in the different areas that we have in that perspective. And that following of personnel would also mean that funds would also follow that function in that way, which is the third area. Now, in terms of the budget baseline, it would have meant that any function that would have been shifted either to the Department of Agriculture or to the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development would have had that specific fixture, and therefore a feature. As we went ahead with the 2 departments, then we had the 2 areas, the 3 areas clearly, distinctly isolated, and we followed that very same program. Now, there are a few areas of importance maybe that the team would touch base on. The first one is how we came up with this. What we came up with was a startup structure. That startup structure had different consultations as led by the different DDGs in the programs to ensure that we have a clear way of how the areas would be stipulated. The area under discussion of cooperative development function remains located in the Department of Agriculture. It is part and parcel of Program 4, but because of operational issues and nursing it back to health, it is now housed in the DG's office as we deal with that area. Following this transfer that we have had, the officials who are doing cooperative enterprise development had lodged a dispute within the management of the Department of Agriculture regarding their placement in the structure. In fact, this lodgement was even before the split. It was within Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And engagements has since happened in this space, and the team that is going to present would point to a dispute that is currently ongoing within the chambers that we have to resolve labor issues per se. Now, there have been various ways in terms of how we would then be dealing with the placement of personnel. Right at the beginning of the of the engagements, we had indicated as the Department of Agriculture that because some of the colleagues had indicated that they might not necessarily have the agricultural know-how and background, not through a fault of theirs, that the department is quite willing to cede that function together with the compensation of employees to the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development for execution. We would like to report to the Portfolio Committee that the separation framework that we have remains very operational. We have had all the sections settled except for this function of CED with 200 odd employees. But we remain very optimistic in terms of managing the shared interfaces that we are managing currently in terms of a memorandum of understanding. And we are also steadfastly working on what these two portfolio committees have been dealing with regarding the audit findings coming from the Auditor General regarding the very same function. And therefore, without going deeper into the presentation, I would like to request the two chairs or the co-chairs, honorable co-chairs, to allow me to call upon Mekhang, who was responsible for leading the NMOC processes within the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, to make the presentation that seeks to unpack the issues around the restructuring process or the NMOC process, and also what has transpired to date. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, DG.
Thank you, DG, and thank you, Mepule. Greetings to Minister and Natasha. Let me flat for myself. May I please? So that I can control the presentation. My apology for this. Thank you very much, Minister Mepule, and thank you, DG, for the introduction and the detailed introduction. I just want to show my picture that I'm at work and not remotely away from the office. And I will switch off the camera now so that I can do the presentation. Let me just load it. Is it visible? Oh, it's not.
Not yet.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
It's visible now. Thank you so much. Let me continue. Now there's this. Yeah. I'll go to the beginning. Thank you, DG, for making my work easier. You've actually dealt with the background in detail, and I will not dwell into that part of the background, but there's a presentation overview And I will just indicate that the purpose of the presentation is to actually update the portfolio committees of the two departments of the outcomes of the split of the DALAT and where we are now in terms of the CEDs. DG has touched on this one, the proclamation 199, how we have separated the functions in terms of that particular proclamation, and how that proclamation of 199 guided the particular processes and functions that were to be split between the two departments. The NMOC process particularly focused on ensuring that the legislation pieces that were identified for the two departments informed which functions then went to which department. And it's a presidential proclamation that guided the whole process, that we were all bound by that particular proclamation, which then said the CED function will be going to agriculture. The NMO project outlined those key actions that we are supposed to be ensuring that the legislative authority of the two from the presidents to ministers is properly transferred, that the splitting, in our case it was a splitting, it was not the renaming or the merging, it was the splitting, that it took place properly, that we had to ensure that the allocation of the functions were done properly in line with the proclamation, and that the approval of the startup structure was done properly in terms of the MPSA concurrence. Indeed, it was done by the early January, I think it was the 14th of January 2025, when the MPSA approved the two structures for the two startup structures for the two departments. Now, the outcome of the split was that we ended up with the two departments having to create and merge and abolish certain department. The process of NMOC required that there should be that creation and merging and abolishment of certain departments. In our case, it was the abolishment of the DALAT and the creation of land reform and rural development and agriculture on the one hand. And of course, we applied the legislative mandates accordingly between the two ministries, and we renamed and we ensure that there's alignment of the different departments, the legislative pieces that were there in terms of the new mandates for the two departments. And we, in terms of managing the NMOG, we also developed the risk management plan, which was implemented and monitored. That ultimately we had ultimately completed the phases of restructuring, and the operational processes was finalized, and the resources were also optimized and are ongoing through the MOU, as the DG had indicated to us that we have an MOU between the two departments. The matching and placing of employees, as DG indicated, was conducted through the bargaining council. But there are, of course, certain employees who were aggrieved by the placement, by the placement process, like the CEDs as we have now. Even other employees who are of the view that they want to be placed elsewhere and not necessarily where the proclamation was put in the function. And then, of course, we are currently managing the grievances and the disputes that emanated from the placement process. Finally, in terms of the outcome of this particular split, we had then the two departments fully established, with agriculture focusing on the agriculture legislative pieces in terms of implementing the mandate on agricultural development, food security, farmer support, and market access. And then with land reform and rural development, focusing on the land reform issues, tenure security, and rural development. But it was important for us to ensure that the transition of establishing the two departments is as smooth and and very smoothly managed, so that it enables the two departments to execute their mandates, and hence the MOU that was established between the two departments, where employees were seconded between the two departments to close the service delivery gaps that may have been there. The DPSA has given the two departments 6 months within which to then come up with fit for purpose organizational structures, having approved the startup structures on the 4th of January 2024. The NMOC of 2019 left us with 11 SMS members who were supernumerary. And in developing the startup structures for the two departments, as we are now splitting, the 11 SMS members then were placed in terms of the two departments in the other positions as advised by the DPSA. And we ended up closing the process with no supernumerary employees in the two departments. Then the NMOC transfer process that were followed, one should note that when we do NMOC, we don't necessarily fully apply the OD principles. Even the NMOC guidelines from the DPSA indicate that we don't apply fully the NMOC, the OD principles, because there is no capacity that we should fully align and adhere to in terms of those principles. However, one critical principle that is always adhered to in the NMOC processes is the fact that structure must always follow the function. Where the function has been determined that the function will go there, then the structure must be developed in line with where the function is going, where the mandate of the department is going. So that is important. That is one key principle that it is always upheld in terms of the NMOC processes. All other processes may be undermined, but the functions the structure will always follow the function. In terms of the proclamation being there, then the structure being developed in line with the proclamation. We then separated the core functions of the DALAT to be able to know which of the two departments is taking the big chunk of the DALAT. After that, we then arrived at the ratio of 60% going to 60% of program 1 going to land reform and 40% of program 1 going to agriculture, because of the total pie of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, 60% of the core functions were going to land and 40% of the core functions were going to agriculture. The program 1 support was then split along those particular ratio. Finally, this is how we then look like in terms of the post-establishment of the two departments. We ended up with the Department of Agriculture having a grand total of 2,317 posts going to that department, of which 2,038 were filled and 152 were additional and 127 were vacant. Normally, we don't have to count the additional posts when you talk about the approved post establishment, because additional posts are not necessarily on the post establishment. However, this time, because we wanted to establish the total capacity of the department, we also had to understand how many additional positions are there that were in each of the two departments. They were going to each of the two departments. On the side of land reform, the 5,173 positions was comprising the post establishment that was approved, with 4,606 being filled and 545 being vacant. This Department of Land Reform and Rural Development at the time of the split had only 22 additional positions to their post establishment. I've spoken about already the 60-40 split, and then of course that at the time when we're splitting out of 7,490 positions, so for the two departments, and then out of this placement process, 256 positions grievances were lodged by the employees. But we should note that of this 256, 201 were from the CODs. So the number may be looking too big, it's a big number, but actually within this 256, there was a class action of 201 from the CODs. As we speak, 208 of these are still pending resolution, although there was a task team was established to look into these grievances, and we ended up with resolutions that were submitted to the two DGs. So the one can say that once the two DGs sit and consider the recommendations submitted for the grievances on placement, then we would have closed on the grievances, except for the 201 cases of the CEDs. When we come to the allocation of resources on the startup structure, we need to know that the core functions were split in accordance with the legislation of the proclamation, as I said earlier on, and the 60/40 of the support was shared accordingly. And I've already explained this particular slide earlier on when I was talking to the split of the 60/40, how it happened. The challenges that we encountered through the NMO process, we also looked at the interventions. As a result of the 60/40 split and the abolishment of unfunded positions, because when you split a department, you don't take into account the unfunded positions. You must first clean up the structure. You must abolish unfunded positions. Out of this split, agriculture was really faced with a skeletal capacity, which really put them in a bad state in terms of the capacity to carry out its mandate. One can say agriculture is still struggling in that skeletal capacity in terms of the support function as we speak. Currently, we are having that MOU, as we said earlier on, that is assisting us to close the gaps. But the area that was hard hit in agriculture was the area of supply chain management. It was really skeletal, very skeletal. And the MOU has really assisted in closing that gap. Then, in terms of the other challenge, the DOA startup structure did not have the heads, the control posts for Program 1. There was no CFO, there was no DDG CSS for the DOA support structure. Therefore, all these Program 1 positions are now currently reporting to the DG, increasing the span of control for the DG, impacting on the DG's focus on strategic issues of the department. That is why we are fast-tracking the finalization of the fit-for-purpose structure in agriculture, so that we can at least maybe have the control posts for Program 1 and relieve the DG posts of the administrative burden that is currently there in that office. But also, if I may add, we have now brought on board the CFO on contract to assist us to really deal with our finances in agriculture. Then the other challenge is that the finalization of the CED dispute. This is the most difficult challenge of all the challenges of the grievances. But the dispute resolution in that regard is still in progress, and all parties are trying to work together. The critical associates are on this page. I will not belabor the point that, of course, there's a need for leadership support. There's a need for various buy-in for the various stakeholders, both employer and labor being committed to the process. It is very important that in an NMO process, all parties must be on board. Employee engagement, there should be regular communication, and change management must be driven with intention to ensure that at least all employees embrace the change, and also the culture of the different organizations, different departments are established at a very early age. Implementation of guidelines and resolutions, that, of course, in terms of the NMO process, is important that we ensure that we comply, because
we need to adhere and adhere to the MO processes, principles, and minimize any resistance in the process with regular reporting to the internal and external structures. When we come to the issue of the CEDs, like DG has said that currently they're reporting to the office of the DG so that there's a close monitoring and addressing of close monitoring and ensuring that there's farmer support that is focused there. The dispute was lodged by the for the 201 employees. However, after the certificate of non-resolution was issued, the employees did not go out, these CED employees did not go out and declare a strike as normally expected in labor relations processes, that they could either declare proceed and do an arbitration, declare and we get and serve the department with an arbitration notice, or they can either go out and exercise their right to go on a strike. None of the two happened. They did not go on a strike, although the certificate of non-resolution was issued. And furthermore, the PSCBC continues to work together with the two departments, to assist the resolution of this dispute. At the last meeting of December, the DGs, the PSCB, the parties to the PSCBC, both employer reps and the employee reps, the unions, they agreed that at the next meeting, they will call the DG of Agriculture and DG of Land Reform and Rural Development to attend the meeting to look at an amicable solution, to consider that together. But we have not yet received that notice of the meeting. It is outside the control of the two departments. We cannot issue that notice. The notice should come from the PSCBC. So we are just waiting for the PSCBC to issue out that notice that calls the two DGs. But as it stands, the employees currently, the CED employees, are continuing to work and perform their duties in the Department of Agriculture in line with the Presidential Proclamation 199. I submit DG. Thank you.
With your permission, may I please call on the CFO, who was also responsible in terms of the split, to just give honorable members from a financial point of view the engagements in terms of what the split meant in total from a departmental perspective. Memokono, if on the platform, please share.
It's okay, DG, they can continue.
Thank you so much, DG. Thank you, honorable co-chairs, honorable members, ministers, and colleagues. Anastasia or Ralph, can you please just project for me? Thank you. I will be taking you through the highlights of the split in terms of the resources. The DG and my colleague have indicated the principles around the money following the function. Can you please put it on a slideshow? Ralph, can you put it on a slideshow and you can move the... Thank you. So on the highlight of the presentation is just to give the overview and what the finances look like, and also in relation to the collaboration that we're currently working on, as the DG as well as the Mechang indicated that the Department of Agriculture currently, in terms of the structure, did not have the control post of the CFO. The collaborations that the two departments are working on in relation to the outstanding audit issues and offering support to the Department of Agriculture. The next slide is on the overview And this slides, we just did an analysis of what actually happened when we look at the finances, where we are when we started in 2019, when we had DAF and now agriculture in 2025, and we had Dr. DLR as well, and now a Department of Land Reform. You'll see that in terms of the allocation, moving or analyzing from 1920, the majority of the budget or the additional budget went to Department of Agriculture. This is mainly, if you look at what we had done and what the colleagues have presented, we had to relook at rural development, and within the rural development, we had a function called Rural Enterprise, which was more doing the CED work. This is where the function of agri-parks and so forth was sitting, which now that function and the entire budget and the COE has moved and were allocated to the Department of Agriculture. And also that from a baseline perspective, what had happened in the 5 years, where we had to do reallocations of the baseline in the 5 years, depending on the challenges we had in the department, then that baseline will then be transferred as it is to where the function is sitting. So we're sitting with we were sitting with about 17.3, where you'd see now that 9.8 billion went to land reform and 7.6 billion went to land reform. You'll see that we have not received any. If you look at where we were in 2019-20 to where we are, we in terms of allocation, really the department or the portfolio had not received much from the first course. Can we move to the next slide? The next slide is just the principle. So in separating the budget, the principle has been, as Mekgang indicated, 60-40, but from a budget perspective, the 60-40 would not necessarily squarely fit, because there's particular functions that would have to move with the current baseline allocation from a core perspective. So when we ended up with the split and the separation, our final calculation came up that with 57% of the COE that has moved to the Department of Land Reform, with 43% to agriculture. But when we dealt with the office accommodation and this ICT, mainly because we wanted to ensure that there's continuity and in terms of making sure that the two department operates effectively, the office accommodation and the ICT used the 60-40 principle. Can you move to the next slide? This is the what the programs and the sub-program, when we finalized the outcome, looked like. We had administration in the Department of Land Reform, which took 20% of the budget. We had land administration. The full core function of land administration remained in the Department of Land Reform, and it took 8% of the budget. And we had land reform and restitution. If you look at land reform and restitution, which accounts to 63%, the area of post-settlement support relating to restitution and redistribution remained with the Department of Land Reform. That is mainly because from a legislative perspective, when you look at the Commission of Land Right Restitution Act, as well as the Provision of Land Assistance Act, as well as ESSA and other Labor Tenant Act that deals with tenure issues, they've got a component of development within that. That is why then you'll see that the budget on land reform and restitution, it's at 6 billion, which includes a portion of development as reflected in the mandate within those pieces of legislation. In the rural development space, we left with 9%, and this is where the area of the cooperative, which initially in the Dr. DLR, it was sitting in this branch, and when we merged that area of CED was then included within the EDTM program within agriculture, and that program then moved with that component of CED. Currently within rural development, we're sitting with NARISAC, Rural Development Coordination, rural infrastructure development, as well as technology research and development that makes up the 9% of the budget. Then the next slide is the program and the sub-program. Also, there's the economic classification, just looking at what COE, goods and services, as well as transfers and payments of capital, which makes the 9.8 billion. If you can move to the next slide. The next slide is the programs that went to the Department of Agriculture with administration, and also looking at the bigger budget sitting in the food security and support space. We've got EDTM, where CED is currently residing in terms of the budget, and then we've got administration, and that is the 7.6 billion that was then allocated, which is the original budget. Obviously, there would have been an adjusted budget during the adjustment estimates processes, which increased the budget a bit. Can we move to the next slide? In terms of how we then managing the split, from what Mekgang has indicated, what happened is that we were not allowed to fill in any new position in the new department. We had to share the function and the personnel accordingly. So what we have done is we had to do a memorandum of agreement, because what has happened in national office especially is there's been a very big impact on administration on both the department, with a severe capacity challenges on areas as supply chain, in the Department of Land Reform, in corporate services. The area of ICT is one also that is hard hit. There's currently no CIO in the department. So the support function really had a big challenge. What we've done is, in the memorandum of agreement, we had to come together and agree on certain support that would give to the Department of Agriculture. Because within the land reform, we still had our provincial service centers, which had some form of finance within. So there are certain functions and transactions that we're still helping the Department of Agriculture. And what we are doing through the MOU is we're doing an interdepartmental claim. So where we do offer security services and assist in the first 6 months of the year, we also assisted with paying payroll to the staff of agriculture. So all those was in within the agreement and was implemented accordingly. Currently, the Department of Agriculture now is able, from a finance perspective, to run its operation. The only areas that we're assisting now mainly is on supply chain. We also are working together with the Department of Agriculture with regard to dealing with audit matters that come from the previous year. What had happened in this instance is that the functions that would have moved to the Department of Agriculture, when you look at the financial statements, the comparative or the 2024-25 balances are still reported in the Department of Land Reform. The reason is because the Land Reform Department is the bigger department, so it has taken over all the issues that related to Department of Agriculture, which meant that we needed to have a close collaboration and working together with Department of Agriculture. So just to give an example, where we've got functions of transfers, advances that were given to entities like your ARC, your IDC, and those qualification paragraphs that would have moved to the Department of Agriculture. In terms of the standards, the Department of Land Reform would be the one that reports those, and we are the one that then transfers the balances to the Department of Agriculture. So we had to have that MOU and agreement, and I must say that the working relations between the two departments in resolving such, it's good. the recovery of these funds, whatever we pay, we recover from the Department of Agriculture through an interdepartmental claim, which the Department of Agriculture does do honor accordingly. I think this is my last slide, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Memokono DG. Is there anything that you want to say before I allow members of the portfolio committees to engage? Okay, honorable members, I want to give you this opportunity. The minister will come a bit later. I'll see by show of hands if you want to engage. And co-chair, I would like to hand over to you at this moment and just request that the portfolio committee on agriculture is still having other items that it has to engage on, and therefore the discussions that we're going to have here must also take into account the fact that we still have to continue. I'm not sure about your committee, co-chair, but I'm not seeing any hand. Does that mean that members are fine? Co-chair, let me give it to you.
Well, thank you, Honorable Co-Chair. Greetings to the Honorable Ministers on the platform, and the Director General and his team. And good morning, Honorable Members of both portfolio committees. I do want to extend a word of thanks to the officials for such a comprehensive presentation. I'm sure honorable members are still digesting it. It's technical, it's highly technical for some of us. Would need some time to actually internalize all the issues that we actually have been hearing. However, I am also open to allowing members to engage if they actually feel they want to, and I will recognize hands. I don't see any hands.
You have Honorable Matsodi, I think.
Oh, thank you, Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, and also thanking the departments with the presentation. I don't have a lot of questions, Chair. Just a quick one on the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. Looking at the restitution and the redistribution targets after a net allocation and the decrease of about 1.125 billion, is there an indication of how are they going to meet their targets with that? Because I tend to believe that there's been about your 5 to 10 year strategic commitments that they were doing as they were processing those, especially on the restitution. How are they going to deal with that, looking at that? Is there maybe a program where the current funding model is going to be revisited to check if it's going to be sustainable with that cut of the budget? And also, if I can find out if there's any research document that can be shared with us to look at whether the split was based purely on staff numbers or was a cost of function and mandate complexity analysis that was conducted. And if that was the case, it was conducted, if they can share with us to have a look at what was it that was in there and how the dispute is going to be handled. Just interest for my sake to look how is this split going to be handled based on the research that was done for the split. Chair, I think that's all from me.
Please not mind, I have network problem, sorry.
Thank you, Honorable Maseko. Is there any other honorable member that would like to actually participate?
Yes, please not member Aris.
You have the floor, honorable member.
Honorable Co-Chair, before Honorable Aris, you have Honorable Matthias who has raised his hand.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your assistance, Co-Chair. My gadget does not actually show hands here.
Okay.
Honorable Matthias.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. And then also join Honorable Maseko in welcoming the presentation. You'll pardon me, Honorable Chair, I'm very close to the construction site, so my background had come a bit noisy. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, although there is this intermittent, cuts. I don't know why.
I've been observing that throughout, even when presentations were being made, and even now when Honorable Maseko was making a contribution. Nonetheless, let me proceed, Honorable Chair.
No, please do, because it's becoming better now.
It's not so clear, Honorable Chair, how far the split of the two departments in that process is able to at least help us to understand the acronyms. There's an acronym here, NMOG. We don't know what that acronym stands for. PSCB, we don't know what it stands for. Just for basic understanding of what we have been presented with. Secondly, Honorable Chair, we don't know how far the split of the two departments internalize and fully comprehend the concept of fit for purpose organogram. We have been fed this notion of a fit for purpose organogram for many years, and which has never come to implementation. It has become a buzzword for the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And with this splitting process, as explained in the presentations, we still don't get an idea of where they're heading to. Perhaps if they can answer that question. But then also, Honorable Chair, would like to understand the split of the different entities, which ones are going to Department of Agriculture and which one would be going to the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, and the rationale for dividing them according to those departments. Thirdly, there are transversal functions such as supply chain management. We don't know what are mechanisms in place to split such transversal functions, including internal audit. Whilst I'm on transversal functions and the splitting of supply chain functions, as well as internal audit, experiences will show that in the past, when splits were made of the two departments, there's been gray areas in respect of these functions where farmers will double dip because there's no clearer, coherent, and comprehensive mechanisms to facilitate a clean split between the two departments. and resulting into huge incurrence of debts, fruitless expenditure, and related expenditure. I would also like to know, Honorable Chair, the utilization and the spending patterns of what was allocated last year in the 2025-2026 budget. How much has been utilized by each department, and how much has not yet been utilized, seeing that we're approaching the end of the financial year? I'm saying this mindful of the fact that there is a likelihood of fiscal dumping and pillaging of resources of budget that should ordinarily be spent to benefit the deserving beneficiaries of the different departments. We need to have a comprehensive account of what has been spent, what has not been spent, and what are the prospects of fiscal dumping and spillaging of resources. Lastly, there seems to be no clarity on the streamlining of farmer support. The Department of Land Reform and Rural Development still has got a mandate of post-settlement support for beneficiaries of land restitution. And yet, at the same time, the Department of Agriculture also had a similar mandate to support farmers. What are the mechanisms in place to ensure that these functions are seamlessly carried out and coordination between the department is moved through? Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Perhaps time allowing, I'll come back with more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Matiase.
Yes. That's Honorable Aris, Honorable Co-Chair. Honorable
Okay.
Aris.
Yes, you are on the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. It's me. I think I must just switch off my camera in order for me not to lose my network. Thank you for the opportunity and thanks for the presentations. Chairperson, I just want to find out, were there any functions transferred without accompanying a budget allocation? And if so, how is this being corrected? And then I want to, as the economic freedom fighters, we want to find out, did National Treasury approve additional funding to address capacity gaps? And if, how will this unreasonable span of control in the Department of Agriculture affect service delivery, particularly the food security program? And then in terms of the finalization, the 7,490 finalized placements, I want to find out why only 81.25 of this grievance is still unresolved, and what is the expected timeline for finalizing of the outstanding grievances, and what risks do the pending CED disputes pose to the departmental stability and operations. The EFF would also like to find out what financial exposure, if there's any, exists due to ongoing labor disputes, and where any unfunded posts abolished, and what impact does it have on operational capacity? We also would like to find out what measures are in place to prevent irregular, and I think my colleague did touch on this one, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, Chairperson. And then also, we'd like to find what risk mitigation strategies are in place to protect national food security. And then, does the fit for purpose structure require additional funding, approval, and has the split improved accountability or merely redistribute administrative burdens? And then, if capacity constraints persist, will the department revisit the allocation model? And then I would also like to find out what measurable service delivery impacts are expected as a result of the overall net decrease of 94 million between 2019-20 and 2025-2026. And does the staff transfer ratio align with the actual workload and mandate responsibilities of each department? And how was the 60-40 split for office accommodation costs determined? Because we all know that accommodation ratios vary. And what progress has been made in reducing the land restitution claim backlog, because there's a huge backlog? Is the 9% allocation to rural development sufficient to address the rural poverty and infrastructural backlog? And why does administration consume 20% of the total budget? And what measures are being implemented to reduce administrative overheads over time? And are there audit findings related to transfer and subsidies that need to be addressed? And Chairperson, I'm nearly done. What proposition of the 407 million for land acquisition is allocated to productive agricultural use? And has the Auditor General flagged any transitional governance risk? And my last question is, what is the timeline for fully stabilizing both departments post-separation? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there any other hand?
Dalani? Yes, Chair.
Honorable
Adams? Dalani?
Yes, Honorable
Adams.
Dalane, you have the floor.
No, thanks, Honorable Chair. Greetings to everybody. I think the department should indicate whether the fit for purpose structure has been finalized. If not, it should indicate progress made so far. It should also indicate whether there have been job losses due to the restructuring of the department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dalane. Yeah, there are very many questions now, but I just hope that the officials are actually taking note of that. Any other hand?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Adams.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Adams.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all on the platform. The Minister, Deputy Minister, if they are on the platform, the staff of the department and our staff. It's the committee. Chair, I have a few questions, and let me also join my colleagues by appreciating the presentation. Thank you for that. Chair, I will start with my questions, and let me first start by the overlapping function. How will the two departments coordinate to ensure that there is no double dipping by some farmers while others receive no support? Next one, consultation, Chairperson, with the employees. Some of the employees demanded to be returned to rural development and indicated that they do not even have qualifications related to agriculture. What is the view of Dalrat on the call by these workers to be returned to the department? And it is also indicated, Chair, in the presentation that the CED employees have since declared a dispute and conciliation was postponed for 30 days. The DOA should indicate actions that have taken to address matters of concern raised by employees. And then, Chair, the transfer of CDE functions to DOA. CED workers were previously housed under rural development to assist with rural development infrastructure. It is now moved to the Department of Agriculture. The transition has caused disruption, including the temporary halting of support and funding issues for farmers depending on CED for support. And then, Chair, the DOE should indicate also the impact on the work of the department, particularly the impact of agri-parks, particularly farmer production support. And the last one, I think my former, my colleague did touch on that, the fit for purpose the structure, creating an organizational structure aligned to the mandate and strategy of each department is key for enhancing it to deliver on its mandate and targets. And then, Chair, in terms of the 25-26 APP of the DALRIT, the fit for purpose structure of the department is set for approval by the department by the end of 2025 and 2026. The department should indicate whether the fit for purpose structure has been finalized. If not, it should indicate progress made so far. It should also indicate whether there have been job losses due to the restructuring of the department. The last one, Chair, is while supporters of the split hope it will create a more focused, if insufficient, approach, the initial phase has been marked by significant ongoing and as of early 2026 still investigated operational difficulties. Can the department explain to us, is this statement a true reflection regarding still investigating operational difficulties and also the initial phase marked for early 2026? Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. Is there any other taker?
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes, you're on the floor. Who is that? Is that Dr. Matlaza?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Matlaza, you have the floor.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to colleagues. Honorable Adams took 99% of my questions in relation to the CED. So I only have just two questions. That is in relation to the first presentation where the presenter said, for now, the CED continue to perform their duties. So I want her to clarify which duties is she referring to. Now, also, how much was allocated to CED and how much they've used so far? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Honorable Dr. Matlaza. Is there any other honorable member that would like to make a comment or ask clarity-seeking questions?
Co-chair, thank you. Let me come in. Co-chair, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, you have the floor, co-chair.
Co-chair, I want to just check on the issue that other members have asked, including Honorable Mashati has just asked now on the CED function. My question would then be, when are they likely to finalize the dispute regarding the CED? And how does this impact the finalization of the fit for purpose structure and the budget for the new financial year? And the second one is whether the agri-parks or agri-hubs program is now with agriculture, and if it is, in which program is it located? The last one is in relation to the FPSUs. Rural Development Program used to provide infrastructure for this one, the FPSUs, while agriculture supported the FPSUs to functionality. Now, how has this been handled in the split? Is it in agriculture in totality, or is it in the rural development? How did they handle that? If I could get the clarification. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Co-Chair. I would like to give the department now the opportunity to respond to the questions. If time permits, we could actually make follow-ups and the likes. So can I give it over to the Director General?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. If you allow me, let me start with my colleague who's also here on the platform, and Linton Heyman, to open up on issues that are of concern that were raised by honorable members. And then I will ask the presenters who were on the platform, starting with Mekang, followed by Memukono. And then I will wrap on the areas that might not necessarily have been covered in terms of those responses. If you may allow me to call upon DG Clayton Heyman.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and Co-Chair, and also to the ministers and DGs and the honourable members on the platform. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I can't see myself. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the questions. I think looking from the perspective of the split, obviously I'm the acting DG, and I then support DG Ramasodi supported him through the split. I think the key working arrangements for us is really working through the MOU that we've signed, and through that we're able to manage supporting each other on certain functions. I think it is clearly mentioned in the presentation that we did struggle initially because on both sides there were very hard cuts that were made in terms of the staff. No staff could be added. So for instance, the CFO remained with the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, and DOA never got a CFO. In the same instances, the CIO went to DOA and we never had one. We, as the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, have also tried various avenues to, for instance, get in a Chief Director Supply Chain Management, and we went to National Treasury and we actually secured a person to be seconded, and then at the last minute that support was unfortunately withdrawn. So we do stand in a position where I think for the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, and I think the question was clearly mentioned and asked, is where do we stand on the fit for purpose structure? As indicated, we initially anticipated that the fit for purpose structure would be completed by the end of 2025. However, and I do say this with caution, is that in order for us to go through this whole complexity change management and to ensure that we align all our programs exactly to our new split mandate, we had to go through a significant procurement process to find a suitable service provider to take the department through this change. And I'm going to quickly ask a number of my DDGs to respond to the specific questions so that you hear it directly from them. The first one is in the fit for purpose. I'm going to give that quickly to DDG acting Mr. Lupongela, who's our corporate services head, and he will then just brief you on the fit for purpose structure, as well as let's leave it at that, and then we can take. After that I will ask the CFO just to talk to some of the issues around the finance. But let's first hear from DDG Lupongela if that suits the committee. DDG Lupongela.
Good morning once again, honorable co-chairs, ministers, deputy ministers, and honorable members of both committees, including my colleagues. Perhaps let me assist on the question, on number of questions also. There was a question about the abbreviation of NMOC. NMOC stands for National Micro-Organization of Government. So that's what it stands for, the abbreviation. And then on the issue of a fit for purpose, indeed, I can confirm that in our APP as Land Reform and Rural Development, the intended date was end of November, and which was in line with the guidelines of the NMOC processes. Guidelines never envisage that there will be grievances and disputes, which then led to delays in terms of processing the realignment of the department. And as a result, we had to go through the bargaining council resolving issues, not only the CEDs that cuts across to both departments, but also even other grievances of colleagues that were questioning their placement in line with what DG Ramasodi had outlined in terms of challenges. Having said so, we have started the procurement process, and today there's a finalization of the whole procurement process. And the timelines is 6 months. Our target is end of August. The fit for purpose structure should be completed, up and running in that regard. And of course, I must also indicate to honorable members that there was a process that was driven through by the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development. That is the mandate definition, and that strategic mandate redefinition took place in July, so as to make sure, as we realign the department and given the split, there is a kind of elimination of duplication, and also the mandate be informed by the legal prescripts of the department. So in short, Chair, I hope the issue of the fit for purpose has been dealt with. On the grievances, most of the grievances, of course, they've been resolved, because initially there were 300 and something grievances. But of course, what we have resolved is to ring fence all the CEDs grievances, not club them with other grievances where people were really contesting that I would prefer to go to agriculture instead of rural development, or I was not consulted. So as a result, that then made the grievances of the colleagues to be smaller, but then the chunk of the grievances is the one of the CEDs, where now they are sitting at the level of both the DGs to assist when we go to the bargaining council. And of course, I must indicate that there is a progress between the two departments, but I wouldn't want to, at this point in time, speak on behalf of my principals as to how they would want to present in the committee, or rather in the bargaining council. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I hope, DG, that helps from my side.
Thank you very much. I think next, Chairperson, with your permission, I'd like to then move to our CFO. And I think the questions that were asked can be put into a few areas. One was on the functional principles and the split methodology. On this, I think the questions that we need to cover, CFO, was a split based on staff numbers and mandate complexity? And I think DDG Gang, you can also come in on this matter. but let's have the CFO from Department of Land Reform and Rural Development come in. Then, was there cost of function analysis conducted? I think there was a question on, were any functions transferred without budget? I think that's very important, CFO, if you can address that. Then how was the 60-40 split applied? And I think just a very short answer, it was based on the numbers of personnel going to each department. Then why did the COE reflect 57%, 43%? Also, there was a question on how was the accommodation split determined, CFO? And is the staff ratio aligned with the mandated workload? And I think that can also be answered. And I think that actually aligns to all the areas. I think that in both departments on that one, there are deficits in staff. I know for the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, we are currently filling a number of posts so that we can ensure that this workload is better managed in the department. So a CFO, maybe you can start with those, then I'll move on. After you've done those, we can talk to the budget sustainability and the reductions. But first, maybe start with that area one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and TG. I had my questions aligned in terms of sequence, but let me jump to the ones that the ADG has indicated. One, just to explain the issue of the methodology around the split. The split was done in such a way that, and Mechang would come in, we had a number of work streams. In these work streams, we had legal work stream, we had infrastructure work stream, we had finance work stream, we had corporate services, which had human resource and so forth. There were a number of work streams that we had in the Department of DALRAD, in the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. So what has happened is that what we have done is a combination of, in terms of the legal work stream, an in-depth analysis of legislation had to be done, where each and every legislation would have to then be placed between the two departments and be placed between the two ministers. And once those mandate analysis have been concluded in that work stream, we're then able to look at firstly where the core functions are and which one will then follow that mandate and follow that function to that particular department. So that is where the complexity of post-settlement support and CED came in. So when we looked at that work stream, when we were analyzing the mandates, the legislation relating to land reform post-settlement support is embedded within the Restitution Act, the Redistribution Act, as well as all tenure acts. We also then had to also look at the biggest challenge that we also had within the process was administration, because we were not allowed to duplicate or bring in new position. And we had to first, and we also, there was a question that was asked whether we were given any additional financial resources to deal with the split. So the answer is we were not given any additional financial capacity to deal with the split. We had to deal with the split based on whatever resources we had. So what we then had to do was that we had to then split program one accordingly. So what we have done is in the split, and to Director Khang would come in detail on this one. When we then had to split administration, we could not use like what we're doing with core, where functions would have followed particular legislation and mandates and they would have gone. But when we came to administration, we had to look at splitting based on who's the bigger in terms of function, which one took which percentage of the function. That is what we dealt with. So that's how the 60-40 was then arrived. Now, how we interlink it with the 57 and the 47, and also bear in mind what the question that was asked in terms of the impact of the disputes and resolution of placement of officials in this period. When we finalized the budget with the final 60-40, we had to now place a budget, the MTF, which is a draft budget MTF allocation from Treasury, which we got an approval. But after the approval, then also the approval with the structure came with different changes. So what we're currently doing in the two departments currently is that we are now in a process where we're claiming back any overs and unders that would have been budgeted for and would have been changed based on the development that came after. For example, there were particular, when we submitted the budget, the position of the corporate services DDG was in the Department of Agriculture. But when the Department of when MPSA finalized the split the structure that positions and the people underneath the DDG corporate services was then moved to the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, and we had to now go through another process where we now reconcile the two and then we claim back between the two departments. That is where that MOU came about. So the NMOC reports, Chair, as Honorable Maseko has asked, with regard to the work stream, those reports are available. They can then be shared. We had not transferred any function without any budget. So all the functions that have been transferred were transferred with the budget. I'm not sure, Chair, DG, if I should finalize the other questions around the budgets and the sustainability as well as the irregular expenditure and the risks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, Chair.
I would rather have the CFO, answer all the financial related questions.
Yes,
So,
fine.
yeah.
Thank
I
you.
remember that someone actually asked the issue of the, for instance, the unfunded functions, the issue of the fiscal dumping and pillage of resources. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe let me start with the issue on the impact of the budget cut on land reform, especially on restitution, whether the department has got with the budget, they've got the capacity to deal with. You would remember that we're still dealing with old order claims, which requires a lot of money. So obviously the impact of the budget cut it's very dire on us. What we have done with the process when we had an engagement with National Treasury, we've agreed with National Treasury that we'll then look at the spending review on restitution separately, so that we can then be able to come up with a costing model of how much then we need to then get from the fiscus to deal with the old order claims. The spending review model that we've agreed on also is linking up with the business process improvements and reviews that we are doing within the restitution space, because you would remember in the previous financial year we could not spend all of our budget based on the changes in processes that we've introduced within the restitution space. So that processes is currently underway, and will then be able to then engage National Treasury further with the with hopefully a request of additional funding, as well as also dealing with capacity issues within restitution, because that is also we had to abolish positions because we had to only deal with only funded position. Then there was a question that was asked that was which entities went where. In the Department of Land Reform, deeds, ALA, Commission, Ingonyama Trust, and OVG went with land reform, and all other agricultural entities that we had, like your ARC, OBP, went to the Department of Agriculture. And then in land reform, then there would be two councils that also were left with the Department of Land Reform. There was a question in terms of how then do we look at managing the split, that we ensure that we do not have any regular expenditure, any double dipping, as well as fiscal dumping. What we have done is that we had to identify and analyze areas that have got risks. One, the first area we needed to discuss, and it's linked to the co-chair, Honorable Pule question around how did we deal with the FPSUs and agri-parks. We had to have an engagement and agreement between the two departments, whereby we then agreed that we need to ensure that the Department of Land Reform relook and assess all the FPSUs and agri-park programs and infrastructure on the ground. With that assessment report, be able to fix and put those infrastructure into operation before before we transfer them over to the Department of Agriculture, so that they don't start with an infrastructure build, whereas infrastructure build was started by rural development. In that way, what we're trying to avoid is that when we bring in now new service provider, new management, then we create additional costs that might not necessarily be fruitful at the end of the day. So what we've agreed is the Department of Agriculture of Land Reform continues to finalize, ensuring that all the infrastructure built on FPSUs are finalized, and then we transfer them over to the Department of Agriculture for them to ensure that they are then operationalized and are being used according to the intended purpose. That is the first part we needed to do. The second part was to look at the post-settlement support, which all honorable members that have asked was, how do we then deal with the issues of double dipping and fiscal and the potential fiscal dumping that might happen. What we have done in the department, we had to now start to re-look at post-settlement support framework from a restitution perspective, redistribution, as well as tenure. So we're currently in that process where we are doing that review. And in that review, it then encompasses an analysis, an in-depth analysis of what the land reform beneficiaries are then getting from either CASP or from Ilimalesima. And that report, when it finalized, it will then be able to give us a fruitful report in terms of how then do we streamline the process. But some of the things we want to do is to align the approval of projects. For instance, when agriculture finalizes approval of projects, and then in land reform side, we then finalize, so that we then have that synergy, so that we can then eliminate the double dipping as well as the fiscal dumping. So this is an exercise that we currently chair running within the department, so that we can then be able to ensure that this process is streamlined. Then there was a question that related to the matter to say, has the Auditor General reflect any risk relating to that? The entire transfer of function in terms of the planning documents from an AG perspective becomes a risk. So in the audit that they're going to be running now, they're going to audit it in detail, because as I said, the Department of Land Reform is the one that is supposed to transfer all balances, assets and liabilities within DALRAT into the Department of Agriculture, and the audit there will also concentrate on ensuring that what was meant to be transferred to the Department of Agriculture, it has then been transferred accordingly. So hopefully with that, we'll then, with this process, ensure that we don't do any irregular and also the fiscal dumping processes. There was a question, Chair, that was asked around how did we deal with office accommodation? What we did from a corporate service perspective, we needed to look at the office spaces around from provincial service sectors and also within national department. You'll see that the Department of Land Reform extends to the 9 provinces, and whereas the Department of Agriculture the extent is not that deep. There is still other offices that we still deal with within the Department of Agriculture. So we had to look at that and also balance that with regard to the split of admin, the 60-40 now in terms, because the admin that will then be transferred out, they would have to have office accommodation that they need to then occupy. So in reality, what actually happened is that we only catered for what is existing. So any cost related to any refurbishment and so forth will be borne by the different departments. So what we then did is to make sure that every area, every department have got money for office accommodation, security services, rates and taxes, and so forth. So that is how we then also dealt with over and above the 60%, 60 and 40% of staff personnel. There was a question around the impact on the split on the budget, the current budget, as well as the impact of the split on the 26-27 budget. 27-28 budget. The impact of the split, honorable members, is that we're gonna be projecting some underspending that would happen because, as I said, we had to split the capacity. Your supply chain in some instances is compromised, and so forth. So there would be those challenges that will then obviously also impact the bottom line in terms of how the two departments effectively spent their budget. And I think in the next meetings we should be able to then bring about the entire reporting. But also there would be another impact on the in the following budget, the 26-27 budget, because these dispute resolutions, once they are resolved, finance needs to still come back and then reshare the budget again, go back to National Treasury and request that the two departments' budget then be readjusted to reflect what is currently happening on the ground. So it will have those impact. Chair, I think I've covered the questions that were asked under finance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The acting DG has actually exhausted all the questions that were actually directed to the department. DG, Mr. Henneman.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I think we've dealt with many of the questions now that have been directed. I think you've also given guidance to the budgetary issues. I think maybe some of the questions that haven't been answered would relate directly to the Department of Agriculture, and therefore, with your permission, give the floor back to DG Ramasodi. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you. Thank you. DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me just at once request Mekhan to take the floor, and I will then wrap up in terms of the areas that have been left out. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, DG and Honorable Chair. I'm back again. With Honorable Matias asked about the acronyms, and that they Lupungela answered one. The other one was the PSCBC, which means the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council, which is the Central Bargaining Council in the public service. And Honorable Matias also asked about the status of the fit for purpose in the departments. In the Department of Agriculture, you must say that we have far advanced. The department went the route of doing the FFP internally. So we have done the draft FFP. After that, we have already also engaged the DPSA on our FFP, which is the requirement in terms of the 2015 directive
on OD, that once you have the draft FFP, you must first engage the DPSA, do a pre-consultation before you submit for MPSA concurrence. Therefore, we have had our pre-consultation with the DPSA. DPSA has given us their feedback in writing. We have had an engagement with our EXCO. We have incorporated the DPSA input to a large extent. We held a workshop yesterday with the EXCO regarding the final draft of the FFP. We are not yet done. We are continuing again with the last 3 branches programs on Thursday. So after Thursday, we will really then be able to then pronounce to say where we are in terms of the FFP. The intention is that before the financial year ends, we should have finalized our FFP and submitted it to the DPSA for concurrence. On the other side, we are also on track in terms of engaging organized labor on the FFP. We have not encountered challenges so far with regard to the FFP, with regard to organized labor regarding the FFP of the department. So that is the status of the FFP in the DOA. Then coming to, I will not touch on the finance on the finance questions. Honorable Letitia was asking about the functions being transferred without funding. That has been answered. And then did the NT make additional? But I'm glad that Honorable Letitia, you're asking this question. Did NT National Treasury make additional budget available for the FFPs? It's because when we were doing the closeout report on the NMOG, DPSA reported in the closeout meeting that the cabinet has taken a decision that all departments that were affected by NMOG will be duly supported to enable them to carry out their mandate by both DPSA and National Treasury, that they must ensure that they are adequately supported towards ensuring that they're able to carry out their mandates. So we'll see when we finally then submit our consult National Treasury with our FFP, if they make additional funding available in line with that statement that came from Cabinet. We'll see if they will make funding available to us. Timeline for, still with Honorable Letitia, was asking about timeline for the grievance resolutions. Currently, we are almost done in terms of the grievance resolutions because recommendations have been submitted for consideration. We will then have an engagement with the two DGs, so that we can be able to wrap that up. Unfunded posts being abolished. When we were
We have lost you.
Sorry, my apologies, sir. When we were splitting, there were 2 key instruments that were applicable. For the core function, we applied the Constitution, the Proclamation 199. For the support functions, there was this guide, the NMOG guide from the DPSA that informed us how to go about with the, and to share, so that at least the members can see the guide that DPSA. Is it visible?
Yes.
This is the DPSA NMOG guide. The NMOG guide on how to then ring-fence for transfer and of staff. Particularly, we applied paragraph 5.1, 5.1, this one, the process of ring-fencing. It talks about why the need for us to even abolish functions to separate. You see, 5.1.2 critically emphasizes that we must first separate the core functions guided by the mandate. That is that Proclamation 199. Separate the four core functions. After that, then we can then go down and deal with the support functions in terms of this NMO guide. And in paragraph this one, 5.1.7, you can see that the 60.4, the ratio of 60/40 was an example that was given here, but by default, it applied in our situation. After verifying that indeed 60% of the core functions of DALRD, DALRD, were falling under land reform, and then 40% were falling under agriculture, then the rest of the support functions were supposed to follow suit. For the purpose of the functions of support, all these support functions, as the committee can see, all these support functions then had to follow suit in terms of that ratio of 60/40 of the core function to be separated like that. So it is important that that this is the instruments that we applied, the resolution, the Proclamation 199 and that NMO guide that applied in the splitting of the DALRD. Having said that, proposition of resolution timeline for tabling to the department. I think we've spoken about the timeline. What is the timeline for tabling for stabilizing the department? One wants to believe that once we have the FFP finalized, we would say we have a critical step milestone achieved, but the resources need to be stabilized also. I mean the finances. If these are not finalized, then we will not be able to achieve that. Normally, normal organizations after a transitional change, the organizations often take 2 to 3 years to stabilize. It is too long a period in terms of our context as a public, as a state organ, that we can take that long for us to stabilize. So we need to put in mechanisms to really expedite the 2 to 3 years timeline for us to stabilize and be able to render services that the people are waiting for. But indeed, we are cognizant of the fact that we need to be running faster than fast. Honorable Dalani was talking about the FFP. When is FFP to be finalized? I've spoken about that in terms of agriculture. Honorable Adams was talking about how will the two departments or prevent double dipping. Memo Kono spoken about that. CEDs without agriculture qualifications. This, of course, is an issue that if there was, when you do the skills development of employees, you can either buy, borrow, or not still develop, buy, borrow, or develop. So we need to be able to say those that are willing to be coming over to the department will be developed. But those that are not willing to be coming over to the department, of course, the department will take over to the dispute will rule on that one together with the DGs of the department. I don't want to dwell much on that, but in terms of HR interventions, if employees are without a skill, we'll need to look at how then to empower the employees through developmental interventions. Honorable Matlaji was talking about which duties allocated to CEDs. Oh, in the presentation, say, Honorable Matlaji, Honorable Dr. Matlaji, I was mentioning that particular sentence specifically said, I will read it. I don't want to open it again. It said employees are expected to continue to perform duties in the Department of Agriculture in line with the Presidential Proclamation 199. They are expected to do that because the function is there. However, as DG mentioned earlier on, that they are now under the office of the DG and under the supervision of Tate Zanzi. I think Tate Zanzi will deliver deliberate more on this bullet. But in terms of the presentation, we're saying we are expecting them to continue to perform their functions until their matter is resolved, which is in terms of labor law, that when you declare a dispute, it does not mean that you should stop working. It means you must continue working until your dispute or your matter has been resolved. Mepule, when will the CED dispute be resolved? You mentioned that one. Oh, this matter actually is under the auspices of the PSCBC as we speak now, like I said earlier on in the presentation, that the Public Service Community Bargaining Council, currently we are waiting for a notice from the PSCBC to call in the 2 DGs. Hopefully at that meeting, when they finally call them, it's an external process. We internally don't have full control over that process, except if we can make follow up through our negotiators. That how far is the process? How far is the notice coming from the PSCBC? In terms of the public entities that are now supposed to be going to agriculture, there was a question that spoke about that. Which public entities? This was also determined in line with the Proclamation 199, because you find that in the core business of the Department of Agriculture, there are related public entities. There is a Perishable Product Export Board, then there's also the Agricultural Research Council, there's the NAMAC, the National Agricultural Marketing Council, there's the Onderstepoort Biological Institute, there's also the South African Veterinary Council, there's also the Wine Certification Authority. All these will also be part of the structure of the top structure of agriculture, reporting to the minister and the DG. I submit DG and Mepule. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Honorable Co-Chair. And although there was just one question, whether there were any job losses in the process of actually splitting functions in the department.
If I may come in, sir, there were no job losses that any employee suffered. Like I said in my presentation earlier on, even the 11 supernumerary SMS members from the 2019 NMOG, even those ones got to be placed in the departments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the DG and your team. May I please hand over to my co-chair to continue the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chair. My appreciation for the assistance on the work that we're doing today. And I think that we have come to the end of the first item and the meeting that we're supposed to be co-chairing on, unless indeed there is something urgent that I have not seen. There is no other hand. So I would like to thank you, Co-Chair, and also thank the DG and the acting DG for assisting us, and all the officials who have made the presentations and responded to the questions. Thank you very much. If there's anything further that members still feel that they would have wanted to ask or may have forgotten to ask now, or it may have slipped their mind, we will then request members to indicate to the chairpersons. We'll then send it to the department, and the department will then be able to assist us. Thank you very much, honorable members, for your time. May I then, co-chair, release you and a team from Rural Development and the Department of Rural Development, and request members from the department, from the Portfolio Committee of Agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair. Thank you very much to honorable members, both of agriculture and also of land reform and rural development. Thank you. We are excused as members of the Portfolio Committee of Land Reform and Rural Development. Thank you, Honorable Co-Chair.
Thank you, Co-Chair. See you next time. Colleagues, can I then confirm if everyone else has left? Colleagues, may I then request that it looks like we're fine here. Just before we, Albertina, can you put on the agenda again so that we see what are the items left? Okay, honorable members, thank you very much. I was hoping that the minister and the deputy minister would still be here, because then I wanted to request on behalf of the members here, all of you honorable members, the minister to be able to brief us on the foot and mouth disease together with the DG on a weekly basis, especially that the president has already declared the foot and mouth disease a national disaster. And therefore, it means that they also have to be reporting, I'm not sure whether on a weekly basis, but I want to believe that once it was declared a national disaster, there must be some regulations and the way that they are supposed to be reporting on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So I wanted to request that. However, I see that the minister may have left here. We no longer have the minister. And I therefore, because I can't see the minister here, I therefore want to request that you allow us to write a letter to the minister I will also try and call the minister and see if I could find him, or at the house if I could find him, so that we talk to him about this request that we're making, because it's very important that we know as to how much progress are they making, especially that farmers are continuously still crying out about the vaccines. But we also need to know as to how much vaccines have they been able to produce, or have they been able to purchase so far, and how many heads are they going to be able to cover, or have they been able to cover since they announced that they are going to do the overall vaccinations. So I want to believe that you would agree with me there, colleagues, and if you have comments, you are allowed to do so. But in this time, I want to request that Noguzola, because the item that follows is the consideration and adoption of the committee oversight visit report to the Eastern Cape, that which happened between the 27th and the 31st of October. However, we know that early this year again, we did go back to go and listen to the communities there and the partners of the project. But we also did again bring the last team last week that needed to come and brief us, the Simpson brothers. So, and again, I want to really probably apologize to members for the fact that we only got the report this morning. I spoke to Nogzola yesterday, and she indicated that there was a lot of work that she needed to do, and that she needed to add some information. So I realized that she only sent the report early this morning, I think around 5 a.m. I'm not very sure if there are members who were able to read the document, and if you have not been able to do so, colleagues, Nogzola will present and will take questions and will make comments. Are we fine, honorable members? Can we allow Nogzola to make the presentation? Okay. I think Nox, you can start.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. This is the draft oversight report on the committee's visit to Ncecha, the first visit being in October, from the 27th to 31st October last year, and then the follow-up visits from the 27th to the 28th January 2026. And also the engagement last week with one of the private stakeholders. This first page is the table of contents for ease of reference for members, because it's a fairly long report. And the list of acronyms that are used throughout the report, and the introduction, which just provides the background, the mandate, and the rationale for the oversight visits, for which the committee went to look at citrus farmers, FPMs, and Ncecha. Sorry, Chair.
Chairperson, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, please come in.
Chair, I read that report.
Is that Honorable Trollip?
Yes, it's Honorable Trollip. I read that report, Chair. It's a very, very lengthy report. And I think there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done on the findings and challenges. And I don't know if we're going to do justice to that report going through it now, because some of us are participating in the response to the State of the Nation address, and that's starting not long from now. And I'm one of those people, and I'm afraid that if we rush through this report, we're not going to do it justice.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why I asked earlier on if members have been able to read it, and there was no response. And given the fact that we only have about 25 minutes of the time left now, until 1 o'clock. It may not be possible, but I wanted to hear from members. There is a proposal, members, that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and that we will not do justice if we continue with it. I want to hear from yourselves, colleagues.
Chairperson, Member Aris, I fully agree with Member Trolle. And secondly, we did not go through this report, but we did get it late. So I will second, if that is a proposal from him, then I will second that proposal. Then also, Chairperson, the other thing that I would also like to raise, I agree with you, we need to get updates on the foot and mouth disease weekly. It must be a standing agenda point on our agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. There you are. The proposal has been supported. Is there anyone who would like to say something else? Honorable Nkabane?
No, thank you so much, Ray. I wanted to support the proposal by Honorable Trolley that we need to defer those two reports to the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. We will have to go back and look at the program with the team and see where we can allocate. I think we'll check next week if we can fit in, especially both the FMD report updates and the oversight reports. May I then look if there's any other item besides the oversight report? Albertina, was that the last item?
Yes, Chair, it was the last item. It was the last agenda item, Chair.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you very much. Nobuzola, you will have to go back and look at your report and find time, and unless if you want to comment on something that you want members to look at as they go through the report.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was going, if it's acceptable to you, Chair, and the members, for members to really look at the findings and recommendations, and if they have any suggestions on how we can refine those or even add, they are welcome to send those even before the next meeting for consideration of the report to make the process easier.
Okay, no, that's
Thanks,
fine. Thank you so much, Knox. Honorable members, there is a request from Nobuzola. As you read the report, please put more emphasis on the recommendations and the outcomes there. And if there's anything you want to add, please send it to us. We will then send to Nobuzola, or you can put it on the group where Knox would see it, and then she will take it up. I want to wish all the members that are going to be debating this afternoon on the SONA presentation by the President. We will see you next week on Tuesday. Thank you very much. Albertina, is it physical or virtual, the next week's one?
The rest of the meetings, Chair, they are all virtual.
Virtual. Okay, so we will have to sit and see how we fit in the two items that we spoke about now. Honorable members, thank you very much for your time, and the meeting is officially adjourned.